Good to see you all. Sorry I'm a couple of minutes late, but that's just kind of the story of my day today. But here I am. I'm happy to see everybody. It's good to see a lot of people that I haven't seen in a long time. I'm just going to take one more quick peek at everybody's faces. Shining faces. Look at all these beautiful people. Maureen, I haven't seen you in a long time. Lisa, you look awesome. It's so good. Good. It's great to see everybody. Susan, I got your message. Yes, you're in the kitchen. Hope you're cooking up something good. All right, so let's dive in. I am, because we're online tonight for till 9 instead of what we've been doing lately. I'm going to give you a break so that you can walk around, do whatever you want to do, but also it'll give you another opportunity to type some questions in the chat room, but you can also type as we go along. I have printed out quite a number of them that people have been kind enough to email me. So we have those to go over as well. But I'll just dive in and start with, okay, now I can see. Okay, I'm gonna just dive in and start with whatever topic your guys are interested in us starting with. And pretty much like as a review of what we did in the last 3 session series, but I'm not going to go into it fully, but just as a review for those who didn't participate in it. One of the most important things for us to understand in this transitional period of history is that there is no map. There's no place where we can look at the transition that we're in. Jeannie, I know why you're smiling, Jeannie. I thought of that as soon as I wrote it, but
move the board.
Oh, move the board. I was instructed to move the board. Oops, move the board the other way. There we go. Yeah, we're all good, right? Good. Okay. There is no map from here to there. However, we will get there nonetheless. That just popped into my head, Jeannie. We tend to look toward history, even if it's the history of a month ago, to set our sights on what we can expect. And even when we realize that we are creating our own reality, we still, if we're looking at our historical evidence or our own memories or what has happened in the world, if we're looking toward that as how we decide what will happen in our world or in our personal lives tomorrow, what we're doing is we're forgetting how powerful we are, and we're forgetting that our energy is in that equation. I totally forgot to put my headset on, so I'm going to do that because, as we all have come to notice, I lose my voice on Zoom, and the headset helps me to not lose my voice on Zoom. Yeah, I've done better than this in the past, so please bear with me here. Okay. All right, so just think about that for a second, that there is no map. One of the things that the coronavirus has offered us is an opportunity to create our own map, to make decisions for ourselves as to how we want to live. So when we reemerge and we begin to have restrictions lessened, it's important for us to decide what we want our lives and the world to be like. I'm going to come right in front of you now as I plug this thing in, so don't mind me for a second. If I can do it. All right, talk among yourselves. I'm going to go around. Okay, I can hear you all again, or not. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Can you hear me? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, good. All right, good. All right, this is probably the most critical thing for us to remember right now. There is no map. There are going to be people who profess that they know what happens next. There are going to be people who tell you what the rules are. There are going to be people who tell you how to behave. There are going to be people who judge. There are going to be people who are afraid. But there really is no map. So the more you are aware of what you would like the world to be like from now and in the future, the more you get to have a bigger and stronger role in creating that, not only for yourself, but for all of us. And by nature, if you are one who's interested in enlightenment and it's been something that you're pursuing and understanding and learning to take off masks and layers and getting, stronger and stronger in your connection to your own soul and to the universe, then you're more of the person and people that we want participating in creating our new reality. If you guys sit back and we leave it to those who might not be at the same level of awareness or vibrating at the same level, then we're going to be allowing them to take where they are in that process of being awake or asleep. And we're going to allow them to tell us what the next coming decade or this decade and beyond is going to look like. So there's really never been an opportunity in history where we've had such a total chance to start fresh, okay? And our perspective about what we want fresh to look like is going to determine, along with everybody else's, what that new start looks like. And we can't underestimate the power of that. If you have a higher level of awareness and your shine is greater, that your rays will reach farther. And if somebody is living in ego, their rays can't reach as far. So you have twice as much, 10 times as much, 100 times as much, 1,000 times as much opportunity to influence the way the world will go after this. I realize that there are a lot of people and communities of people, individually and collectively, that have a lot of fear primarily about money. A lot of people have fear about body harmony and all, but there's a lot of collective fear about money, about income, the stock market. How do I make up some of the income I may have lost over the last couple of months, and so on. But the one thing to always remember in this is that in most cases, whenever we have a dip in our financial, personal assets and income and so on, our financial profile, we're alone or we're with a small collective group of people that are experiencing the same dip. But this dip right now, it's the entire globe. So we don't need to spend too much time getting really afraid or feeling like we're not going to pull ourselves out of this, or that whatever we feel like is slipping away is a permanent example of what will come. So knowing that there's no map, it's important that you use your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, and the subsequent actions that you take now to align with abundance. And don't let this tiny, tiny, tiny little period in the scheme of things give you any misunderstanding or misbelief about what your financial future can be like. I find it interesting that some people are sending me quotes from throughout history, and the quotes that come that are aligned with the idea of abundance or prosperity or business success, over and over and over again, they repeat, even quotes that a couple of people have sent to me that were written or said during the Great Depression. Over and over and over again, they say that, yeah, there are going to be some people who feel that they've lost everything, or that the effects that it's had on their relationship with abundance is going to affect generations to come. But there are going to be as many people that are earning and earning more because they became more creative. Their vibration is aligned with abundance and prosperity. So if this has been something that you're concerned about, it's important that you stay connected to the overriding theme that there is no map. The map for you and your personal finances in this example, the map is you, okay? And if you had a relationship with scarcity up until now, if you just were to spend even 10 seconds a day saying, this is my time, I don't have to necessarily know how or why, or I don't have to know how to explain it, but I just feel like whatever Corona has cleared out, I feel like this is my chance for prosperity. This is my time that I'm going to shine with abundance. And if you say that, even like I said, 10 seconds a day, and you say it while feeling like enthusiastic or jazzed or excited, what it does is it changes your whole relationship simply with scarcity versus abundance. If you were to take a few minutes right now and think about every time you have magnetized something to you, no matter what it is, even if it lasted for decades or if it lasted for a moment, if you focus on when you have magnetized something to you to the point that you're celebrating and like, wow, I can't believe that I did that. I can't believe that I experienced that. If you take that feeling and you attach it and connect it to remembering what some of your thoughts were, did you expect it to happen on some level? Did you believe it was possible on some level? Did you believe that you were worthy of it happening on some level? Those are the things you want to look for. If you've manifested in the past on some level, you believed it was possible, you believed you were worthy of it happening, and you believed that you could connect with that possibility, the same exact mindset is how you want to re-emerge into creating your next individual and collective reality. Even if I'm focusing on abundance right now, because that seems to be the thing people are the most concerned with in the last week or two, even if I'm focusing on that, this process is true with anything, with relationships, with your relationship with your body. It's true with everything. Do you feel worthy? Are you expecting that it can happen? You believe that it's possible? Do you get excited about thinking about it or putting any kind of energy to it? This is what you want to think about in moving forward. Don't think that there's a written answer as to what things are going to look like in the world or in your life in 6 months. It is not written. We are writing it right now. This period of accelerated enlightenment, what we've noticed leading up to 2020 over the last decade, what we've noticed very, very strongly is that accelerated enlightenment means that if we used to put a thought out here on the timeline, we might see it manifest here. And then accelerated enlightenment means, well, next time it's going to manifest here, and then it's going to manifest here, and next it's going to manifest there, and next it's going to manifest there. An increase in accelerated enlightenment means it's manifesting far more quickly. So now, even if you were to be kind of confined for another week or 2 weeks or a month, can you imagine how much you can manifest just by taking advantage of the universal energy of accelerated enlightenment today? Imagine how much you could manifest simply by putting in some excitement, by putting some positive energy, some effort into creating your next steps. Okay? There's going to be a percentage of the population that they're going to get back into working and back into commuting and all the other things that they do. And within a week or so, they'll be right back into the rhythm that they were in before this started. And they'll probably even say things to themselves like, oh, if I had only known what it was going to be like to return, I would have done this and that and this and that while I was still home. The things that they didn't do. But we don't have to think like that. We don't have to think like, oh, did we do everything that we wanted to do while we were home? Number one, we can still do it. But while we're doing that other stuff, more hobbies, more playing, more living in joy, maybe more meditating, maybe more exercising, whatever it is we're doing, while we're doing that, we also want to put a little bit of thought and positive energy to what we want our life to look like when we return. Okay, let me make sure that I'm going to see all of the questions here. Okay, I'm going to talk about that question in a little while too. There's an echo of different themes that are going on through a lot of the questions, so I will get to them tonight. It's interesting that when our level of awareness helps us to really understand that we create our own reality, it's still kind of fascinating to see how we let our emotional history of everything that we've experienced in our life, we still let that come between us and where we want to be, even when we are aware that we are creating our own reality. Okay. I want to start out with a story. Back when I was channeling the first book, The Answers, I used to have a lot of like off the record conversations with guides. And sometimes they would just pose like a really big question to me and ask me to think about it for a little while. And I would think about it, and then after I thought about it, sometimes I would sense answers coming in, but then other times they would just have me sit down at the computer and write out an answer. And I would wind up getting these really high level of awareness essays out of it. Some of those essays, most of those essays that they did with me privately, I haven't put them out there. I haven't published them. I haven't made them known, because the topics can be so divisive. That's the word. They can be so divisive that it makes more sense to focus on how we create our reality and things that we can do in a reality, rather than get into big debates about the vibrational energy of all things at play. But one essay that they wrote that profoundly changed my perception of reality was an essay that they wrote about which is more aligned with soulfulness. Is it I want to try to remember all the players. Okay, they gave me 3 players. One was, now you'll see why I don't put these essays out there, right? Okay, one was a murderer. The second was, let's say the potential punishment or sentence was execution. Okay, so they asked me, which one of these is the least soulful? Okay, it's interesting, right? Which one of these participation, if the murderer is then convicted of the crime and sentenced to death, okay? So which one of these is the least soulful? So I thought about that. Let me look at your faces, because I'm sure you guys are kind of thinking about that too. It's a meaty question. And I got hit with that question rather early on. So I hadn't yet understood so many of the vibrations that are at play in human form. So for me, it was, I wasn't concerned about getting the right answer. I was concerned about understanding the vibrational energy behind the question and the answer. So I contemplated it for a bit, and they didn't give me that answer right away. But then I finally sat down with them, and they wrote an essay, and it was absolutely amazing, the essay. It was so incredible. I actually was like sweating at the end of it. And what they said is that a murderer is acting on the history of pain that they personally have experienced at the hands of another.
It's impossible to murder another unless you've been separated from unconditional love and support. So whether or not they know that it's quote unquote right or wrong, it's still an expression of their body of personal history that they may not have had strategies to overcome or to rebuild. The second one, the executioner, on some level, oftentimes people have a job, and that job is something they get a paycheck for. And maybe during the course of that job, they might reevaluate the connection to the mission of that organization or that role or that task. But when they receive the first thought about taking that role, or they get promoted to a role or so on, it's usually perceived as a way to get a paycheck. And in some cases, some people see it as a way to get a paycheck that's expeditious, or maybe it's the only way I can make this much money. Maybe it's the only way I can feed my family that I know of. The judge, on the other hand, is the only one that does not have a vested personal interest in any of the experiences connected to the murder. The judge, let's just for argument's sake, I'm going to say he, because it's just easier for me. Let's say he's the only one that's not actually either getting a paycheck for doing a job, as the executioner is, and he's not the one that has reacted to not being unconditionally loved throughout his whole life. He's the only one that is actually inserting himself and making a decision about the value of somebody's life. Do we follow that? So what this did for me when I read this essay, trust me, if I were to pull that essay up and read it, you'd be like, well, they did a really better job explaining it than you did, Karen, but we're okay. Move on. But the way that they wrote that brilliantly, going through each one of these participants, what it helped me to understand is that what they asked me was, which is more soulful or which is less soulful? So it means, where are we vibrating? Where are we vibrating? Okay. And there's really no such thing as right or wrong. There's no such thing as right or wrong. There's only levels in which we are behaving connected to soulful wisdom. So in this particular story, I recognize that we play out some huge, massive dramas on the canvas of our earthly reality. I don't think it can get any more dramatic than this. But when we're playing them out, what they really are there opportunities for each person involved, and there are opportunities for everyone connected to each person involved, and it's opportunities for everyone connected to those connected to each person involved to decide or question for themselves, what kind of soulful choices do they believe in? How does someone become a murderer? How does someone become an executioner? Should this be O? How does someone become a judge and put forth I'm like brain fried today. I can't pick the simplest words. The sentence of death. Oh God. Okay. So what causes people to do this? We're all going to go back home. We're all going to die. So as souls, we're not that connected to when we die. We're not that connected to the story of how we die. Once we're on the other side, all of that is finished. We get to advance our soul's intention on the other side by guiding people. But when we return home, we're not like self-critical or self-punishing because we murdered someone. We're not self-critical or self-punishing because we executed people. And we're not self-critical or self-judging, how funny, because we were a judge that put people to death as their sentence. We come back with a full understanding of how we participated in soulful choices. because being a soul on earth means growing in our ability to give love, receive love for ourselves and others. So what we're doing right here in looking at this is to see that it doesn't matter when we go back after Corona. It doesn't matter if you are a politician. It doesn't matter if you own a restaurant. It doesn't matter if you are a banker. What does matter is your soulfulness. When you're painting your own level of reality, when you're going back and you're seeing what's possible for you, you have free will. You have independence of thought. You can do anything. You can continue along the journey you were on pre-corona, or you can start a brand new journey where you are going to be able to make a difference in your relationship with abundance and with other people. Is how soulfully you return. How soulfully can you return? Part of being a soul, this is difficult for people to understand. Part of being a soul is believing in your own power. Now, more than ever, you want to believe in your own power. You want to believe that you can create the reality that you want. You can believe that you're being soulful by understanding how powerful you are. Self-love is always the foundation for any success being defined by you. Self-love is always the foundation of every success that you experience and every success that you help others to experience. So the number one thing you can do to be more soulful is to believe in your own power. Believe in your own power. Believe in your own power. It's really easy to see other people and having more hand in what happens for the unfolding of your future than you. It's easy to see that it's legislators. It's easy to see that it's the World Health Organization. It's easy to see that it's germs. Might not be a person, but a thing. It's so easy to believe that they all have more hand in what your reality looks like than you do. They don't. They don't. They don't. And as we just looked at in this period of accelerated enlightenment, what you put out there, it grows faster than it ever has before. There's something about this vibrational energy that double downs or exponentially adds to whatever you put out there. So in this transition between isolation and reemergence, think about what you want and believe that you have the power to magnetize it, to create it, and to co-create it. Understand that soulfulness is going to be, how do I say this? The simplest way for me to say it is that soulfulness is going to be more rewarded than anything. But living awake, since accelerated enlightenment is having clarity of soulfulness, the vibration of soul, the vibration of love, you're going to magnetize in more help than others will magnetize in for whatever it is you choose, for whatever it is you want to do. Whatever you would like next, now is the time to think about it, to feel good about it, to peek at it and see, what are my beliefs? Do I think that it's possible that this can happen? Do I love myself enough for this to happen? Now is the time to think about that. Now is the time to get ahead in the new soulful climate that we are co-creating. Okay? And when we were in Grenada and we were talking about the vibration of 2020, one thing that was kind of a bit of a theme was that whatever you put out there now, that the ripples will go farther. If you put out something that you don't want, it's going to become bigger. If you put out something that you want, it's going to become bigger. So we might have had moments in our past where we weren't necessarily aware whether we were focusing on what we want or what we don't want. But now is the time to once and for all turn on knowing what you want. Okay? Don't see yourself as being in the hands of what everybody else wants. Don't see yourself as everyone's going to make the decisions and then you're going to see how it will affect you. Be the one that knows what it is that you want. You stay clear on what you want and you will manifest it now more than ever. When I was channeling the answers, I was amazed at the end of that book how they had the 10 list. And there was a very careful set of instructions in that 10 list about how to manifest the life that it is that you want. And that 10 list was ask for or write down 10 things that you want and always keep 10 things on the list. And there were a couple of aspects to that I was curious about, like why 10? And also the shoulds and the woulds and the have tos about the list. What can I put there? What I can't put there? I was very curious what the guides were saying about that as well. You can't put time on there because the universe doesn't respond to time. It's an unknown. It doesn't exist. It doesn't have any energy. It's only a tool for us to use here. So when you're putting out what you want, you can think in terms of time, but the universe doesn't know how to react to your version of time. It's going to be expeditious and try to get you something as quickly as you are believing in it and focusing on it and feeling jazzed and excited about it, but it's going to manufacture it in its own way, depending on all of the moving parts that it has to bring together to allow these miracles to occur. So you can't really put time on there, and you really can't put a specific name. Like I would love my daughter to meet someone and get married and blah, blah, blah. You can put on there what you want: abundance, good health, relationships, with you at the center of everything you put on that list. When we don't love ourselves fully, it's harder to think in terms of, can I make this list or is it selfish? Selfish has a negative connotation on earth. And in that context, if we say selfish, we do kind of see it as being unkind or only thinking of ourselves. But if we understand that writing down or feeling or believing or putting excited feelings to what we want is self-focused, and that all soulful choices lead to our own personally defined success, when we recognize that we become whole when we are self-focused first, then we also get to see that the byproduct of that is that whatever we have manifested, we will have an abundance of it. And therefore, we'll have more resources to make contributions of value to others. We'll have more of whatever it is we created, whether it's time or money or gestures or volunteering or good deeds, kind words, whatever it is that we can give to others is going to come from a place of an overflow of what we have developed in our own lives. So we're not going to be depleted. If we give and give and give and give and give without being whole ourselves, we will be depleted and we won't be able to have the successes that we would like, whatever that might be. Abundance with our relationships or abundance with our bodies. Okay? So the whole point of me talking about the story of which is more soulful with the murderer, the executioner, and the judge is just so that we can understand that it's very, very easy to get caught up in right or wrong. It's very, very easy to get caught up in saying that this person is good and this person is bad. It's very easy to get caught in that dichotomy as we're moving forward about this group of people has my back and this group of people doesn't have my back. The whole thing is a big story. The whole thing is a big story. 2020 and this decade on is the decade in which we will have more and more soulful organizations, growth, and so on. And this period, if you really think about it, is helping us to clear away and potentially deconstruct that which is not soulful. If you guys are like me, by some, you probably have had a lot of people show you, or you've seen a lot in social media, a lot of very strong videos about conspiracies, videos that are anti-government, videos that will leave you feeling vulnerable and unclear and definitely unsafe and probably pretty insecure about the potential future of the world. But some of those videos make us feel like we are victims and that we don't have power to create our own reality, and that there's some master plan that is going to change our future, even if we're not participating in that. What I can tell you is that would completely negate everything that we know about enlightenment. It would negate everything that we know about the power to manifest. It would negate all of those miracles that you guys have been seeing for however long in your own lives. When you think something and it appears, when you have a dream and then it's there, when you get a sign when you're worried and it points you in the right direction. All of these miracles, it would be like saying that none of them are real and none of them exist, that there's a handful of people who decide everything and that we are just all victims at their whim. It's not true. We have power. We have power. If we keep focusing on our soulful choices, those who don't focus on soulful choices, they will fade. We can give them a boost, but they will fade. Throughout all of history, there's been periods when the most egoic factions have risen, but then they've been pulled down. Then they rise and then they've been pulled down. They rise and then they've been pulled down. But if you look around the globe and look at the number of regions that are living under that autocracy, you see that the numbers are smaller than they've ever been in history. Sometimes they were globally. They are shrinking. The media doesn't have you necessarily see that, but they are getting smaller. And what we do know that we have more of is people who are acting in kindness, people that are supporting one another, people that are clever, people who are creative, people who are doing the most amazing things on a daily basis in big ways and little ways. Probably we're seeing evidence of it during isolation more than we ever could have had such a huge concentrated opportunity to see that, how many wonderful things people are doing. And I thought of a really funny, it struck me as funny anyway. One of the funny ways that we can metaphorically see what Corona is doing for us, it single-handedly has changed single-handedly changed the definition of a drive-by. How could it be that we can all across the planet say, I'm doing a drive-by tomorrow, I'm going to do a drive-by, or we're having a drive-by, or, I saw the greatest drive-by the other day. And what that definition was last year, 2019, where you never said that. You didn't choose those words. You didn't string them together. And now here we are within a couple of months. It's going to be something cool that we say forever that we had a drive-by, right? I'm going to pop this open again so I can see everybody's faces. But who's experienced a drive-by recently? Anyone? They're so fun. We've participated in them. We've seen them. One of the funniest things is we were having a social distancing party on a driveway, and we were focusing on two people's birthdays that were 2 days apart. And then there was a drive-by, and the two people that we were celebrating, they knew it wasn't for them, but they took total credit that the drive-by was for them. So you can even take credit for other people's drive-by now. So that's the world that we live in right now. I thought that was hysterical. Our kids in our town, the teachers, probably about 60 different teachers, did a drive-by with signs, honking horns, telling everybody we're with you, we're thinking about you. And the kids, little by little, as they would snap each other or tell each other, the kids started to come out of the houses and wave to the teachers as they were coming by. So we have this awesome definition of a drive-by now. So that alone is a phenomenal metaphor for how many changes that we've had. Okay, so now is your time. When you hang up today, it feels a little elementary since the answers and The Secret both came out in 2006, 2007, that they're talking about the law of attraction. But ultimately, we really are talking about the law of attraction here, how you create your reality. The law of attraction is not any longer something that we're thinking about theoretically. The law of attraction now is something that we want to step up and into our own power to manifest the world we want to live in. This means sometimes being a little bit more diligent with things that we might have overlooked in the past. Simple acts of kindness, picking something up when you drop it, leaving a place better than you found it. Just all of the ways that we behave when people are watching, but also the ways we behave when people are not watching. You know, I know I've been renting cars for decades. I know that temptation of acting different with a rental car than when you pull your own car off a lot. But I now, beyond a shadow, I don't think I ever mistreated a rental car. I might not have wiped down that extra coffee that dripped out of my cup or something like that as diligently on a rental car as I might have on my own. But some people abuse the rental cars. But whatever it is, I do my best to take every single thing that I brought with me, all my trash, all my everything with me when I leave a rental car. I just try to take care of things the way that I would take care of my own stuff. And renting a car is just a tiny example. How can you take care of the world the way you would take care of the people that you love? How would you take care of a stranger the way you would take care of someone in your own family? If you're connected to just even being a part of our Enlightenment power groups, the answer is that you do a really good job taking care of the things that are closest to you, and likely by extension, you do a really good job for others as well. But now it's a matter of maybe going that extra mile. It's doing one more thing, not everything, but one more thing. When I run, if I see something that I can relatively simply pick up that escaped someone's garbage, and I can relatively simply put it back in the garbage, I'm going to do it because it just feels good. I left the world a better place. I'm not going to go through the whole neighborhood every time I run and pick up all of the garbage or all of the debris. It's a matter of just do one more thing. Just do one more thing. I have people here whose faces I can see that when I've given seminars and we have a couple of hours the night before a seminar to set up like 80 chairs and tables, you know, they come and they help. They give up their Friday evening and they set up the chairs and they set up the tables. And it's so incredible that with 4 or 5 people's energy setting up 80 chairs and tables in comparison to, you know, just a couple of people doing all that. It's the same philosophy. that if everyone just does a little bit of something, everything gets done more readily and more easily. So understand that all of these choices that you make are going to make a difference in the world that we live in of the future. All of it. When we are asleep, we tend to live in a linear fashion. And that means that we tend to do things in sequence. First we do this, and then we do this, and then we do this, and then we do this. Okay? A person who lives linearly also has a tendency to compartmentalize. So if they have a crummy day at work, they might be able to be okay at home. Or if they have a crummy day at home, they might be able to be all sing-songy and wonderful when they go to the grocery store. But when you are becoming more and more enlightened, it gets very, very difficult to live sequentially or categorically. And what we move toward is instead of living linearly, we live holistically. Holistically means that the whole of your life is in a sphere. But if you look at even that one little drawing that I just do, I draw my circles all the time, but the sphere could be metaphoric for the planet, couldn't it? There really is no categories. There is no separation. There is no way to box things off. There is no way to live linearly when you're looking at the whole of the planet. Enlightenment causes us to graduate from linear living to holistic living. The more people that move from linear living to holistic living, the more everyone is living more holistically in conjunction with the entire planet. It's a natural extension of our soulful focus. It's a natural extension of our soulful focus. I was doing a seminar a really long time ago, and one of the things that the guides had talked about it, I don't know where the suggestion came from, but there was like a war going on in the Mideast, surprise, between two neighboring countries. And the suggestion that had come up, I don't know if it was somebody on earth had talked about it, but the suggestion was, what if we took the two disagreeable groups of people, the ones that just can't seem to get along for anything and think that something about them is superior to the other group, right? Isn't that why all war starts? To prove something from the ego, that I'm better on some level. What if we took the kids and we swap them? What if you take my kid, you read him bedtime stories, you feed him, you let him play with your other children, and I have yours. And then at the end, let's say 3 months. 3 months later, we swap them back and we still decide how we feel about this war. What do you think would happen to everyone's decision to kill each other? At that moment then, you've let the most precious thing to your heart, your child, stay with a host family, and he came back happy. He's well fed. He met some kids that he really likes. He was hanging out with them. In the end, we found out that there's more in common than there is different. You think you're going to be able to now kill the host family? No. Holistic living is basically the same process. It's understanding that our soulful choices affect everything. The whole point here is that make today the time that you stop resisting what you think other people are doing. Make today that day. Stop resisting what you think others are doing. It actually doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. At the highest level of awareness, it's hard. It's so hard to help people understand this. It doesn't matter what other people are doing. It does not matter what other people are doing. What matters is your soulful choices. What matters is your soulful choices. That's what matters. Your soulful choices. So you can look and hunt and criticize and be judgmental at anything going on there. Who's wearing a mask, who's not, who says we have to go back half speed, who says we go back full speed, are we going back fast enough, are we going back too slow? You can have an opinion about everything. But in the end, the only thing that matters is what vibration you are putting out there. Your vibration is the thing you have control over. You. What are you thinking about? What are you feeling? What are you believing? What actions are you taking based on what you think, feel, and believe? That is the only thing that matters. The rest is the backdrop. So I said, focus on what you want. And the guide said, well, you probably think that that's selfish. And then they said, no, it's self-focused, and self-love is the foundation for all success. So stop resisting what you think they're doing. When the ego is still the dominant energy that is propagating the choices a person makes, there's going to be a lot of things that other people do that you don't feel is soulful. There's going to be a lot of people making choices out there that you don't think are in the best interest of one another or the planet or our healthfulness. But when we judge, we become a part of that vibration. When we get angry, we become a part of that vibration. But what if, even if we were still triggered, what if we took each trigger and we turned it to a quick, what do I want? What do I want? If every trigger led to, what do I want? If you compel yourself to ask this question, what do I want? You turn from being judgmental or angry or resisting or resistant. You turn your energy to being creative. You turn your energy to becoming more soulful. You turn disempowerment to power. Is there anything selfish about moving from resistance to creation? There's nothing selfish about it. I want to read a question. It's a tough question, and I know I'm giving answers that are more blunt over the last 2 years. I know that. So I'm going to do that again here, because we don't really have we don't need the luxury of decades more to figure some of this stuff out, right? Let's just get on board with it now. People were writing about it 2,000 years ago, 200 years ago. It's true. It's true today. It'll be true long after all of us are gone. It's still going to be true. So let's just read into it right now and stop fretting over some of this stuff. One of the questions was, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. A person who's on the call tonight, a good friend of hers died in a car accident recently. And she leaves behind 2 young children. So she was a very soulful person who contributed to the greater good. How do I make sense out of this? It's a tough question, right? How could I possibly give an answer of value and meaning? How could I possibly give an answer of value and meaning to that? Especially after I just said, what do I want? It seems like a really weird lead in to that particular question, right? What do I want? So what do I want? I want to make any contribution that I can. I want to be soulful. I want to express my, desire to be of value to anyone that can use it, whether it's her children or her husband or whomever. I want to do all that, and you can do all that. But what I also want to do is I want to help people understand life and death a little bit differently, because we have this odd collective narrative that it doesn't make any sense for a good person or soulful person to die young or tragically. We have this belief that we can't make any sense out of that. We have this belief, even to the point that we'll write music about it, but only the good die young. It's a misunderstanding about how we create our reality here. If you really think about the fact that we manifest reality by what we think, feel, believe, and then the subsequent actions that we take, one of the areas of that vibration that I have never ever heard anybody talk about in the spiritual world at all is how we feel sad or hurt for others who are in pain. Okay? Because most religions teach us that compassion or empathy makes you a good person. Some religions teach you that that's going to get you to where you want to be in the afterlife. We praise kids that behave like that in elementary school, and we criticize or punish or separate those who don't. So we're reinforcing as a society that empathy it makes us better. It makes us more soulful. Okay? It's not true. It's not true. Empathy does not make you more soulful as a standalone vibration. If it's mixed with pain, if it's mixed with disempowerment, if it's mixed with helplessness, it's a big difference. Religion doesn't tell you that if you want to be compassionate with positive possibility. Be compassionate with seeing how the benefits can potentially unfold here. Be compassionate by showing a different way. Be compassionate sometimes by stop offering so much help, right? But if we are empathetic and if we are compassionate, always with pain, we are not vibrating in the feeling part of that equation. We are not vibrating happily, are we? I have known people who, and I don't want to be unkind when I say things like this. It's about the feelings. But they put out prayer chains and they say, oh my God, I can't believe what happened to my neighbor. And then they talk about what happened to the neighbor's dog, and then they talk about what happened to an 18-year-old who didn't get into the school. And every single thing is a tragic or sad story. Every bit of their focus is about others' needs and how bad things are for everyone and how sad it is, or bringing attention to it, or doing this or doing that. That person is going to magnetize in uncomfortable things happening to them. They are a good person. They just haven't learned to distinguish between empathy and compassion and the energy of disempowerment. They haven't been able to distinguish between the two. There was a fellow that I knew indirectly, and he was on social media. All of his posts were filled with sadness and sad emojis, and we've got to help these people and do this. It wasn't a vibration of even anger, which could be a powerful action-oriented emotion, but it was filled with despondency, despair, sadness, having to make the world a better place because it just is so horrible what happens to people, right? So I indirectly had him in my peripheral, and I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that this guy was going to experience a level of challenge, crisis, or tragedy at the same level of all of the people in the community he was so beautifully supporting. I knew it was going to happen. And a lot of people think that that's, what is that, a wicked, punishing God? Like, why would they do that to him? He's poured thousands and thousands of hours and dollars into picking up the community. How on earth could something like that happen to him? And I'll show you. What happened was he was vibrating this. He was vibrating in this level of despair, of sadness, of things that happen to people. And when Sandy hit, I wasn't predicting it because I wanted to, but when Sandy hit, his entire house got destroyed, all the way down through the flooding of the basement. His house just left its foundation. There was not one thing salvageable. So I watched and I understood, like, some of his neighbors' houses were still standing. So I understood that this was that thing that had been my intuitive periphery, that something like this would come to him. Did he create it? Did he cause it? God, no. And it's a horrible thing to say. But by vibrating in despair for other people's challenges, by staying in that despondency, by staying in that disempowered feeling, by staying in heartache, he became magnetic for heartache. Now, what happened after that was that so many of the people that he supported came and supported him and rallied around him and donated clothes and blankets and money and shelter and all of this. The idea from the universe is we're not going to cut you down and leave you without anything. We're going to let you see how the vibration of love that you have put out there can also help you to put your stuff back together. You're not invisible. They were trying to show him a different vibration. They were trying to show him that maybe when he is helping others, by seeing something that he thought was so thoroughly hopeless, and how he rallied from it and became even more connected to the vibration of love by maybe even feeling more visible or feeling more supported or feeling more like he's co-creating reality, the universe gave him the opportunity to not treat others who he wanted to help, not treat them with a tragic despondency, right? For him to say, oh, look where I was yesterday when Sandy came through, and look at what everyone has done, and the love that I feel, the love that I feel surrounding me, that's lifting me up. Now, next time he goes to help someone, which he will continue to do, he can go there with an entirely different energy. You see the difference? Now he can go with, oh, I'm so excited because we get to be that loving community for this family. We get to be that loving supporter for this. We don't have to go saying, oh, I'm so sorry, this is so horrible. It's not much, but we raised a little bit of this. We don't have to go with that energy anymore. We can go with, we're here. We're all in this together. So you can have compassion. You can have empathy, but don't be despondent. Despondency still is a feeling. And when you create your reality by what you think, feel, believe, and the actions that you take, if you're feeling despondent, it's still 25% at a minimum of the equation. And it's actually more than that, because you believe that whom you're helping is sad, deserves to be sad, and will continue to be sad. So part of your belief system is enfolded in there too. You could be bringing 50% of how you create your reality into despondency. It doesn't mean that we can't emote. It doesn't mean that we can't have reactions. It doesn't mean that we can't grieve. But it's a matter of taking off the lens that we're looking at everything through sadness, through tragic eyes, through disempowered feelings. That's the key. So in this particular case, no one should die in a car accident and leave 2 kids. No one. But let's not forget for ourselves to bring empowering feelings to people who are experiencing challenges. Let's show up with powerful feelings. I don't remember when this happened, but back when I was working in corporate America, there was this man. I worked in the defense industry, anti-intuitive industry. So I was working in the defense industry, and we manufactured quite a lot of parts for military aircrafts and the space shuttle and things like that. And I became friends with some people there. And there was this man who worked in the sheet metal department. He was an expediter, and he and I became friends. He was born and raised in Colombia. He came up here. His parents somehow just kind of like got him here, him and his brother. And they stayed and dealt with the worst of whatever was going on. But he and his brother made their lives here. They were teenagers when they came here with really nothing. And this guy, Francisco, absolutely adored him. Absolutely adored him. Great, bubbly. He had started all of these soccer programs on Long Island. He pretty much introduced Long Island even to competitive soccer for young people. Really great guy, right? So one day he comes, we find out he's not in work. You find out that his brother had a horrible motorcycle accident. He was in a coma. He was in the hospital. All his bones were broken, and there was not a very good likelihood that he would survive. And this is probably one of the, I haven't thought about this probably ever, really. I think your guides are just prompting it today. But this must have been an intuitive moment for me, because I was one of the few people in the white collar part of the company that was friends with him. So most people that I worked with hadn't heard of it. So all I thought of is, well, what can we do? His brother was in a coma, not expected to survive. The first thing I said to him is, Francisco, when you're there, treat everything in the room as though he can hear you, right? It just felt like something to say, and I didn't have any reason to say it, but that's what I said. Then I went around and I passed an envelope through the whole, the offices. I passed an envelope through the office and I said, Francisco's brother had this accident, and if anybody, I wrote down what I was going to do with the money, and I wrote, just put your name on it so that we know that you've seen the envelope, so no one will harass you. But if you also want to make a donation, just put it inside the envelope. So I wasn't asking for a particular amount, and I wasn't asking to know whether you gave or not, right? When the envelope came back to me, I went and I bought, we didn't have digital yet, so I bought a tape recorder, and then I went and I bought batteries, and I went and I bought tons of books on tape, right? And I think I found out what his favorite music was. I was able to find some of his favorite music. So we gave him, from the company, we had this little thing where the whole company gave him all this stuff very, very quickly within a day or so. And I was like so excited, and Francisco was excited. So he took all this stuff and he brought it to the hospital, and he just put the headphones on his brother. And when he or anybody was sitting by his side, they would just play, an audiobook or play music. And sure enough, I'm not saying that single-handedly changed anything, but sure enough, like a few days of that, it felt like the brother could, like Francisco would say, do you want to hear music or would you like to hear a book? He just felt like there were little tiny movement from the finger, right? Now, the thing about it is, eventually, miraculously, his brother fully recovered. And if you realize that many years ago, there wasn't a lot of people rallying around him. That's what I'm trying to emphasize. But the person that did rally around him, me, indirectly, I never visited him in the hospital. I felt like it was a very personal thing. I probably wasn't allowed anyway. But I did it with love and hope and possibility. You see the difference? And that's what Francisco did. What we gave to his brother came from empowered feelings. They weren't tragic feelings. You follow me? That, if we treat the world like that, moving back after Corona, and managing circumstances like this, and helping other people when we feel compassion or empathy for their life experiences. Don't deny your feelings. Express your feelings, feel your feelings. But then enough is enough. Let's get on with it. Let's build. Let's create. Let's start getting the feeling of optimism and possibility. Let's find the good. It's always a choice. It's always a choice. Always a choice. It's not that I don't grieve anymore, but the level of grief I have now is absolutely nothing like the level of grief that I would have experienced about anything 20 years ago. Even reading this question, where I would have gone 20 years ago with this comparatively. But the more we understand the flow of energy, the more we're going to be able to create our flow of energy to make the world more soulful. You're not a good person because you feel despair for them. It doesn't make you a better person. But adding some love into what they're experiencing, that is an expression of soulfulness that will make a bigger, more everlasting difference. All right, it's 20 after 8. I'm going to take a quick break, and I will let people type in some questions. I will answer the questions that are here and the questions that are there for the next 35 minutes when we get back. Take a 5-minute break or type in a question. See you in a little bit.
It's, it occurred to me that probably an easy way to,
You probably can't hear me, huh? All right. Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, good. It occurred to me that probably an easy way to understand this when we're not dealing with something as difficult as death to illustrate. A good way to understand this is we've probably in our lifetime, like pre-corona, we've each known a couple of people that have out of nowhere just lost their job, right? And we've seen two different reactions from people who have lost their jobs in the past. One is that the person becomes terrified, really, and they become, smaller, and they wither, and they panic, and they don't know what to do. They might have reasons for thinking that there's a permanency to this that's surprising that somebody would think that quickly. And then another person can unexpectedly lose their job, and after what would seem like a reasonable grief period, or anger or whatever they're going to feel, all of a sudden something starts to emerge, and they're like, you know what? I hated this job, and this is the universe's way of saying that, for 2 decades you've been talking about wanting to open up a photography studio for 20 years. And obviously I've proven over and over again, I'm not going to do it. So they're like, oh, we gave you a chance. 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 So let's just kind of like, chances are up. We're just going to kind of peel that little tiny job of yours away. And now I feel like, all right, I get it. I hear you. I'm going to do it. And it's going to be great. I'm going to love what I do. I'm going to make money at it. And boom, thank you, universe, for taking my job away from me. And you can almost sense that now that we know so much about how we manifest reality, you can almost imagine exactly what from the moment that job is lost, the one who says, oh, look at that, the universe did me a favor, the elevation that they're going to reach, right? And then you can almost imagine where that other one is going to go until his feelings return to a place of empowerment and optimism and feeling jazzed. See that? See, it helps you to see through that illustration so much more how much what we feel, how much that matters. What we feel and how much it matters. Get rid of the idea that you're a better person if you feel worse for others. It is not true. It is not true. I didn't feel the level of tragedy that a lot of people might have felt toward the situation with Francisco's brother. I just didn't. I don't know why I didn't. I felt a lot over the first 24 hours or whatever, but then I actually thought, what can I do? What can I do? Not what can I do because this is so tragic, but what can I do? It was almost like it was a building thought. It was a creating thought, right? It was getting out of that space of disempowerment. It was allowing me to take positive action in a direction. If it didn't turn out that Francisco's brother recovered, I also wouldn't then look at it and say, life sucks. I can't believe I raised all this money. I put all my heart into it. I got all these books. I got all this music. I got, I've been taking care of Francisco, and I'm never doing anything like this again because the universe is cruel. Life sucks. And this wasn't even worth it. I invested so much of my money and my time or my feelings or my love into this. I wouldn't have done that either. There's a big difference between creating through positive possibility and sinking through dread. Is such a different feeling. Last year, 2019, the year opened up, and I I felt such a shift in the guide's perspective about that the concept of feeling was going to become more and more critical and important in where we are going. Okay? What we are feeling. Some of you might even be on this call and you'll know who I'm talking about, but I won't use names. So there was in one of my private Enlightenment Power groups, there was a woman who was very, very, very financially successful. She had a couple of businesses and she had a lot of, she had a lot of money, plenty of resources. There's just always this vibration that, we knew she was never going to really have to worry about money again. Not worry wasn't the right word, but we knew she didn't have to have a plan for where money would come from in the future. Okay. So every time we were in this Enlightenment Power group, she would say things like, this is it. This is what's going to break me. Or I can't believe it. I think I just got to sell my stupid businesses, or I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like, by the end of the month, I'm not even going to be able to pay my bills. For years, she said this. And I was thinking, this is not helpful to this group, because here she is, the one in the group that's the most financially successful, and she's narrating like this tragic relationship with money all the time. So this is not good. So one day we walk in and the guides said, here's the approach we're going to take. So let's just say, I think there is someone on the call that will remember this. So just make up a name. Let's say the woman's name is Nancy. All right. So I started talking about Nancy in the third party as though she weren't present in the room. I first said, listen, I said, Nancy, would you mind if I throw you under the bus to illustrate something? And she's like, no. I'm like, all right, good. So then I talked about Nancy as though she wasn't in the room. And I said, listen, guys, here's the deal. Here's what we know about Susan and her relationship with abundance. And here are the things, Nancy says, here's the things that she says. So here's what she says, and here's how she lives, right? So they're incongruent, right? They're incongruent. Like most of you are trying to have a healthier relationship with abundance. And if the most abundant person in the room is showing you that she's always got this tragic relationship with abundance, it's really not helping to model manifestation of wealth, is it? So finally I said to everyone, I said, the thing is that you all have to know that she's a fraud. And they're like, what? I said, she's a fraud. Because what she does is she uses these words with us. Oh my God, within 30 days, I'm going to have zero money. But all she's actually doing is she's creating a pathway of creating abundance in her head. And she's using the words to link up all those solutions to something that's not that big of a deal. But she never feels those tragic words that she says. She's delivering at us and bombarding us with word choices, but there's no negative vibrational energy of feelings behind them. And she started to crack up. She's like, you are so right. I don't feel them. I am thinking, all right, well, this was a little annoying. And I put that in my words, but I'm going to figure out a way. I'm going to be better and stronger from this. I'm glad they took that machine away from me, because here's what I'm going to do now, And she's like, you're absolutely right. So sometimes our words might sound like we shouldn't be having the reality that's as brilliant as it is, or other people's words don't seem to match what happens after the equal sign. It's because their feelings don't match it then either, for better or for worse. If someone's life is not as bad as they're sounding, or their life is not as good as they're sounding, it's because the feelings to match how they're living aren't congruent. Got it? Cool. All right, next question. This question, actually, since I read all these questions before we started, I've actually been trying to answer them throughout the night. And I hope I'm going to look at everybody and see if there are any nods here. Did anybody's questions get answered by the things I have said tonight? Okay. Because I was trying to answer some of them. Okay. Here we have a very specific question, but I'm going to illustrate how we have been talking about this tonight. I'm a restaurant consultant. About 75% of my clients have withdrawn their contracts because their income has dramatically decreased. Do you have any predictions about how soon the restaurant industry will recover, or is it an industry that is being deconstructed and will not reemerge? Deconstruct and reconstruct were big themes that we talked about in Grenada. And a lot of things are going to be deconstructed. Should I wait things out or explore other career options? Okay. Number one, that was one of the questions that allowed me to focus so much on what we think, feel, believe, and our feelings being the dominant quality to affect what happens for us personally after we return. Okay. And this particular person, I'm sure she has some influence over the decision makers at her company. One of the things that she can do is be a voice of optimism and creativity by even making some suggestions of perhaps a way that they can branch off into another focus to supplement their revenue while the restaurant industry is getting back on its feet. As far as is the restaurant industry being deconstructed, the answer is no. However, I do sense that it will take a hit. And here's the hit that it will take. When in other classes recently, we've talked a lot about the 10%, the responses that people will have. 10% of people will respond this way and this way and this way and this way when we reemerge. There's going to be 10% that won't go to restaurants anymore. There are going to be 10% of the people who have been in the restaurant industry for a long time that just got fed up or crushed from this 2-month period and are going to take their nest egg and retire. So they won't reemerge, they won't re-enter. There's going to be a 10%. So there's going to be these 10%ers, 10% here, 10% there, that will affect the outcome. But remember, as each person is living in their own sense of disempowerment, if they don't reemerge, that leaves an opening for a potential win for someone else. So here's two things of looking at it. So there's going to be a lot of people that don't go to restaurants ever again because they're now afraid of people. But there's also going to be restaurant owners who don't return back to opening their restaurants, and they'll take their nest egg and go and do the next leg of their journey. Well, now what we did was we closed a restaurant and then we took some people away, right? So if we reshuffle people who go to restaurants, then the remaining restaurants will still have patrons. You follow? So it has more to do with what we're thinking and believing and feeling than it has to do with what the outcome will be for restaurants. There are going to be certain industries that are going to have some resets, but not necessarily falter in this deconstructing, reconstructing period where they can't bounce back. And I do think that the restaurant industry is one of them. People enjoy restaurants. They enjoy having food cooked for them. They enjoy socializing, and the longevity of it is a vibrational energy that can be very, very soulful. Therefore, would be an important and self-perpetuating part of the new soulful era of 2020 and beyond. Okay, what for you then directly, since you can't single-handedly re-up the restaurant industry and have it get to be back to the point that you have abundance for yourself and others, is I would, number one, put my positive feelings and thoughts and beliefs and actions toward feeling that recovery. And I would also use my creative energy to help those who are in the decision-making capacity to find supplementary focuses and ways that they can have revenue while the restaurant industry is amping back up. But I also see that there's a huge trend today, now so more than ever, but it's been emerging for the last 10 years, is that oftentimes people piece together their sources of revenue and take a piece of this, a piece of that, and a piece of that to create more flexibility and less dependency on one particular area of revenue only. Like even for me, when I started this business, I'm going to take a sip because I made it. It's a chicory and I can't remember what other root. Oh, it's so good. So I don't remember what I was talking about because all of a sudden the drink looked so good. What was I talking about? Restaurant industry. Oh yeah. Okay. So even when I started this in 2007, I knew that it was important for me, you know, the old, don't put all your eggs in one basket. I knew it was important for me to have different streams of revenue so that if something was up, another one could be down. And when something was down, another one could be up. So I've always had multiple streams of revenue since I started. And it is interesting how some things go up and some things go down. But I am able to maintain a level of abundance simply because I have multiple focuses. So the answer for you personally is that I happen to know who this is. So you are so talented, more than most people I've ever met in my entire life. This might be an opportunity for you to have some other piece come together as a revenue stream for you in the interim. But no, I don't think the restaurant industry is going to disappear. Okay. All right. I have a question that was in the chat room privately that is about feeling, this is from someone who is working as an essential worker and feels strange around people who are not taking the precautions that have been suggested to bring about a greater possibility of good health and being careful of oneself and others. Okay. So what she's saying is that she doesn't necessarily find that they're being proactive or preventative enough, and being an essential worker and seeing people die from COVID and so on. Sometimes it's very difficult for her to manage those behaviors of others or to think about how to interact with them. This is a really tricky question because it's making an assumption that facts create our reality. So that's one of the challenges of being human, is that we keep basing all of our choices and our responses on the idea that facts are in fact what create our reality. But facts are fiction, and it's a premise that strips away all of our perceptions. So when, I've told it before, the story of how, decades ago, we really didn't have nut allergies, and now we have massive amounts of nut allergies. So is it a fact that all humans were susceptible to allergies from nuts? If that's the case, then why was that not true in the 70s, but it's true now in this decade? So that, we tend to say, oh, well, it's because of this or it's because of that, but it's just simply because facts are fiction. We through what we think, feel, believe, and the subsequent actions that we take based on what we're thinking and feeling and believe, we create the facts of the day. So I always told this story about how the first nut allergy concept came to be. And then they told two friends, and they told two friends, and they told two friends, and they told two friends. And eventually, when people stay connected to the same story, the physiology of our planet and our plant community and our bacteria and our viruses, they start to change and shift based on the consciousness and the expectations of our projection. Before we're born, we know our consciousness creates our reality. When we come here, we forget it. We think that things happen at us and to us instead of with us and for us. For thousands of years, what people were thinking and feeling and believing in the actions that they were taking had such a slow effect on physical reality that we weren't able to understand the cause and effect between the aspects of this formula and how we live. Now, with accelerated enlightenment, we're able to see this cause and this effect so rapidly that we can almost see changes in our perception and how rapidly and radically change exists in the physical. So we can debate, and there are billions of people that are debating what is the virology of this illness. What do we have to do to prevent it? What do we have to do to disassemble it? What do we have to do to protect people? We can do that endlessly, and then there's going to be new information that pops up constantly. But every time we're putting a ton of energy into any particular assumption of fact, we are cementing that as a fact. Okay? There have been, throughout the world, there have been lots and lots of viruses and plagues and so on. But the mass hysteria and mass ignorance even about what we're thinking, feeling, believing, and the subsequent actions that we take will be the determining factor of where that particular virus or illness or contagion lasts. They'll always have, whatever it is, whatever illness is consuming us, will always have tons of potential benefit enfolded in. They don't come in with reckless abandon to try to have a tragic effect on humanity. They are always modifying their path in conjunction from where we as a species have separated from soulful living. So that's the bigger top-down answer. The smaller answer, the littler answer, is that it's also important to live in honor of each other, which means that if we feel better about having our masks on and our hands covered and social distancing and going back at quarter speed or half speed, if that's helping a lot of the population to feel more comfortable as we reemerge, then we'll all do that respectfully and living in honor and doing it. Not only will it help this virus who's listening to us, not only will it help us to tell the virus that we're done with it and it's no longer necessary because we have gotten and extracted the benefits of its usefulness out, but it will also help us to bring back those resistant or fearful. By us respecting that fear, we're also going to help them to reemerge with comfort. Therefore, they too will be less vulnerable to any potential illness. So living in honor, I like to say living in honor. I like the word honor. It's such a better word than right or wrong or good or bad. So the answer is to do our personal best to live in honor of other people's choices, of their fear, of their concerns, or of their freedom, of whatever it is that their personal narrative is that's going on for them. On the previous classes, one of the things that I had suggested as an example was going out with the mask on. I noticed an unfriendliness among consumers and customers, and I noticed an enhanced friendliness among any staff or helpers. The dichotomy between them was startling to me. And so I started to think about it, like to get answers in, like, why is this community so divided? And I recognized that the staff Sometimes they were coming there in appreciation of having an income when they saw so many people not. Understanding that so many people were struggling, that they actually wanted to be able to help. Having less people to help, so it gave them some freedom and some peace in being able to spend some extra time helping people when they previously couldn't, because they were stressed about all of the other aspects of their money-making job and what their bosses were expecting of them in every minute. So one of the things we talked about was for us to go out there when we have our masks on and to learn how to smile with your eyes, dance with your eyes. When you smile with your eyes, if you're a customer or you're a healthcare provider, it helps everybody to feel like they're still embraced. The warmth of what's hidden behind your mask, you might not necessarily be able to convey it, but if you put the smile in your eyes, you can convey it there. So that doesn't necessarily help with those who are not wearing their masks or they're not being preventative, but the idea is to go out there with whatever it is that you do and live in honor of where people are living. Whether they're living, you think, too far to one direction or the other direction, just try to respect where they are living, for better or for worse. We all do create our own realities. We all do. And we do so collectively in a situation like this. The more we live in honor and dance with our eyes, the more we're going to take away some of the resistance that those who are not even taking preventative measures feel that they have to do. It's when we are butting heads by, oh, they're taking away our liberties, or this disease is not that bad, or this is killing people and we have to get more serious and more. Those two factions create resistance. When we strip away the resistance, everyone can live in honor of each other and come to a common space in the middle where we can all move forward. Okay? And that's the hardest thing. It's sort of like asking the Democrats and the Republicans to throw a big party together and have a good time. It's not that easy to do, but the idea is to keep living in honor of where other people are. And we can model what we believe to be our better actions and to model it happily, dancing behind the eyes, but not be openly criticizing others. People don't like to be criticized. There's ways to model, there's ways to suggest, but not through making another person feel like dismissed or inconsequential or unheard or not appreciated. Okay, that's an art. It's always an art to be able to help a person see something from another perspective without coming full on with direct criticism. No matter how high we think the stakes are, it is a beautiful and worthwhile art to convey information without someone feeling like they are being criticized. Look at that. Is that better? Yeah, okay. All right. Let's see, what else? Oh, I love that. All the messages, a lot of the messages are coming in privately. I don't know why. I guess you're choosing that. But this is really great what somebody wrote. You are encumbered by dread. You are empowered by positive feelings. Yeah, that's really good. Someone's asking, can you tell me more things about the 10 things you want list? Is it similar to the 16 cards exercise? The 16 cards exercise is taking the action role in conjunction with the 10 list. The 10 list is the last two chapters of the book, The Answers, which basically just shows you how to use your thinking, your feeling, your believing, and putting it together in a list of 10 things. It's a list of 10 things that you want, and you can cross them off when they're manifested. But by having 10 instead of 2 or 3, it helps us to go with the flow, let it go, not micromanage any particular desire. So there's a lot of ways that the 10 list helps us to manifest what it is that we're wanting. And then the 16 list is a tool for manifesting the things on the list, because it doesn't The 10 list doesn't have action in it. It's more about thinking and feeling and believing. Okay? All right, good. So have you seen any purple Volkswagens lately, Susan? What is, this one I've been answering all night. What is one message my guides would want me to hear now? And I love that she wrote this, besides calm the frig down. So besides calm the frig down, all of the things that I've been talking about, we're talking about, is live now, unlike you may ever had to this level before. Live knowing that you are powerful, that you have the power to shift the reemergence of yourself. And because you are a knowingly a soulful being having a physical life, your choices and what you think, feel, believe, and the actions that you take will more pronouncedly affect the collective reemergence into our physical spaces again. So it's tapping into your power. Don't make any mistake. All of us have been disempowered by our past experiences. All of us have been hurt. All of us have been told that we're not enough. All of us have been experiencing, years, if not decades and decades of feeling less than or feeling not enough. All right. When I started to feel self-love, when I grew self-love, that's when I started to understand that I am powerful. I used to live based on the consequences of my childhood. I used to live in, I don't even like the phrase, but I used to be a victim. I was a victim of everything. If you could think of something that could go wrong, it happened to me, because I didn't know things happened with me and for me, and I didn't understand the link between what I was thinking and feeling and believing that were an echo of my childhood pain and my childhood experiences. I didn't know that there was a link. Okay. So once you start to really, really hone in on your love of yourself, the other stuff comes back into your sights and into your touch. So the one message your guides would like you to remember is to please, please remember how powerful you are. You are powerful. You are powerful. We're almost out of time. Let's see if I can do one more. It's a long question to read, so I'll just basically say, we're always working on moving past the pain of our childhood and removing masks and layers. So what tools can I use to move? Every single thing I do is to give you tools. The tools, they're all there. They're in Happy in 90. They're in every single essay. They're in every YouTube video. They're in every workshop I give. I always, always, always give tools. Always. I always give tools. I know that we're not as adept at getting information into our mind and having that be something that we can adopt into our bodies. We can't take it from here to there into our being. So I always give tools to help make it go from here to here. You've known people who have read every spiritual book that's out there. They've seen every speaker. They've gone to every retreat. They've spent tens of thousands of dollars, if not more. And they don't seem to be moving at all because they're staying in here. So I say one thing is read through the list of topics in the essays on KarenGarvey.com. And if you see an essay title that resonates with you, read it. Find out whatever exercise is in there. Go back to the answers that has exercises. Go back to Begin Here that has exercises. Go to my YouTube channel and read the description of whatever that particular seminar is about. They always have exercises. And then do the exercises. Like even tonight, whether you realize it or not, They started out with an exercise, is when you feel distracted by what other people are doing or not doing, what do? Ask yourself a question. Right? All the time I'm giving tools. If you can ask yourself that question at that moment of judgment or that moment of feeling, weird or whatever, what do I want? When you go back there, you move yourself from disempowerment to being powerful. You move yourself from being victimized to being a creator, to starting something, to beginning something, to doing something, to taking positive action. Okay? Later on, I was talking about not having tragic feelings or not living in and immersing yourself in and staying in tragic feelings when other people are experiencing challenges. The thing that the guide said is, what can I do? Okay, so it's not about doing everything, but what meaningful way can I express love or positive possibility into the situation which already happened? The situation happened. Wallowing about it, fretting about it, staying miserable about it, it's not going to change anything. But what can I do to add positive possibility to the situation if I would like to? Because first it is, what do I want? What do I want? Right? So use so many of the tools that I have given out there, and that will help you to continue to peel off masks and layers and get back to the core of your love of self. All right, so the most important takeaway for tonight, I can definitely sense that the seminar that I was supposed to be giving on April 26th in person that got canceled, I can definitely see that is emerging into becoming definitely a seminar more about how to experience the vibration of 2020, but also how to create the energy of how the world will be and your life will be moving forward. But the takeaway for now is not to just keep re-emphasizing how important this period in history is, but to recognize that if you focus on your soulful choices, which means if you keep growing your love of self, if you grow that, your soul will shine more. The more your soul shines, and since you have a higher level of awareness and a radiant energy that reaches farther than a lot of people do, you will be reharmonizing the world simply by you focusing here. Okay? That's our takeaway. We have a wonderful opportunity here in history to literally make the world a better place. And we can do it. We can do it. I will increasingly be putting things out there where we can come together and connect our energy, because the potency of us together is phenomenal, and we want to tap into and combine our energies for continuing to manifest the world in which we want to live from this moment forward, instead of letting other people take the reins and make all of the decisions for us. This is our role, and this role is more powerful than anything that anybody else can do on this planet. Okay? We are a part of the solution in reemergence. We are the solution in reemergence. Okay, it was wonderful to see all of you. Thank you for being here. I really look forward to seeing you in person again soon. That'll be super, super nice. Maybe June will be the month that we can actually hug if you want to hug, or socially distance in the same room if you want to socially distance in the same room. And I hope you feel better about life and better about yourself after spending this time with us tonight. You can unmute yourselves and say hello if you'd like, and I will see you all again soon. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
That was great, Karen. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you, Randy. I haven't seen you in a while.
No, good to see you too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hugging you all. Thank you.
Good night.